Ordinarily, I tried to give the benefit of the doubt, but this is Lauren Southern. There hasn't been any doubt for years. Hi, and welcome to, or back to, my channel. I'm Kit, your friendly feminist cat lady spinster, and today we're going to discuss why Lauren Southern hates being a woman in the workforce. A few months ago, I was browsing YouTube and I came across this video from Lauren. Usually her videos are overtly political, so I was intrigued to see what she had to say about this topic. Is feminism at fault for her feelings? You bet. Let's get into it. Oh, and if you're a Lauren Southern fan, sympathizer, whatever, I have no patience for you.
Women. Can't live with them, can't live without them. Am I right, fellas? Dudes? Bros?
So I guess it's a safe bet, judging from this opening, that her video about why she hates being a woman in the workforce, note it's not about being in the workforce in general, it's specifically about being a woman in the workforce, is going to be addressed toward men. And from a cursory look at the comments, Lauren knows her audience well.
Yes, that's right. I am officially announcing I am returning to tradition.
It's true. Lauren is going to give up her career and be a stay-at-home mother.
Well, my tradition anyways, because this video, I'm going to go back to a favorite topic of mine, and that is why feminism has absolutely screwed everything up for everyone once again.
Oh, okay, that kind of tradition. I'm not sure if something done within less than 10 years can be called tradition, but I'm very curious to see how far Lauren will go with her hatred of feminism. She's clearly not going to give up her career, so perhaps she'll only do videos about topics her husband approves of for her, deposit whatever money she makes into a bank account only in her husband's name, steadfastly refuse to be named on anything he might purchase. Actually, shouldn't she not be Lauren Southern any longer? We know she's married. Why isn't she using her husband's name? Or is this yet another woman on feminism while benefiting from it?
And like all women, I'm going to spend a lot of this video talking about myself.
Let me translate.
LOL, the ladies, always talking about themselves, even though we all know they have nothing important to say, and you men have better things to do. Am I right, guys? Yeah, I'm right.
And my experiences as, drumroll, a woman in the workforce. Cue you're a man jokes. Get it out of your system. Just get it out there, all right?
Does Lauren's audience often claim she's actually a man? Weird and rude if so, but I am a bit curious about what part of being in the workforce she's talking about. Lauren has spent her whole career in media. She worked for Rebel News for 2 years, and since then she's been doing her own thing. She has her YouTube channel, her documentaries, and I see she's made one about how the migration system in the US is fundamentally broken, and I would love to know how a Canadian living in Australia is an expert on this subject. And she also claims that illegal immigration to the US is at a 20-year high, and I have a feeling she's playing with some numbers there to get the desired reaction from her audience. However, this video isn't about that, and smarter people than I have dealt with Lauren's dishonesty. Point being, she's been her own boss pretty much all of her career. I can understand that being so well known, especially as a woman in a male-dominated field, and I'm not just talking media, I'm talking far-right, alt-right media, which tends to be male-dominated since those beliefs also include women belong at home, can lead to some doubts as to whether or not you're truly worthy of all the attention and praise, and what will happen when people find out you're a fraud. And this is not me calling Lauren a fraud, that's just how the mental mindfuck of imposter syndrome works.
Now, I know some of you would love to watch a women should stay at home barefoot in the kitchen video, mostly because I know how much some of you sickos absolutely love feet, but unfortunately that is just not an option right now, thanks to Brandon, Putler, Trudeau, and modern crony capitalism forcing families to function on 2 salaries, even if they just want one breadwinner.
Trudeau and Biden are making it impossible for families to live off one income? This isn't a recent phenomenon. Wages have been stagnating for decades. Totally unrelated though, the CEO to worker pay ratio has drastically changed and not in the worker's favor. I wonder if that has anything to do with anything. Also, if given the option, would Lauren actually want to be a stay-at-home mother?
So women are in the workforce and here to stay, whether we like it or not.
It's tough, but there are people still out there living off one income. I believe you can find some of them using the hashtag #TradWives.
Wage slaving with all you lads. Woohoo! We're all in this economic crash together. But I think anyone with eyes can see that this has caused a lot of problems. Women and men working together that none of us like to admit. And it's going to be a hell of a lot of effort to unpack just what some of those are, at least from my experience.
If you're wondering, she did drag this out to her ad break, and yes, she is being sponsored by Epic Times. Anyway, I don't think Lauren's experience is most women's, actually most people's experience. Most of us, for instance, don't work with a camera crew.
All right, so let's get into all the problems of my womanness. Let's start from the top. Despite popular belief, I was not born into this world with some red pill right-wing awareness of everything going on around me. In fact, I spent most of my childhood and teen years playing outside, going to anime conventions, wanting to be an archaeologist like Indiana Jones, and, planning to go to university and do some sort of career like most people plan for when they're younger. I was never thinking, oh, as a woman, I'm going to have this extremely different experience than the average person when I go into the workforce that I'm going to have to account for.
I also did not take my sex into account when planning my future career. Is that something people do?
When you're younger, especially when you're a kid or a teenager, you kind of have this illusion of the world that everything is working the way it's supposed to, based on the constant public images that every industry works so hard to project. It's all just hunky-dory corporate advertising of men and women smiling next together in business suits with thumbs up.
I disagree. You think everything is working as it's supposed to because you're a kid. You're not looking deeper. You're not even aware you should be looking deeper.
But little do you know, behind those soulless smiles is a deeper resentment than you could ever imagine towards the opposite sex.
So men resent their female coworkers and women resent their male coworkers? Workplace resentment is sex-based? That's what I'm to take away from this? Citation needed, and also, Lauren knows that's a stock photo, right?
One fueled by bitterness towards hiring practices, mismanagement of sexual dynamics.
What?
Real assault allegations, fake assault allegations, power dynamic pressures, and all the sorts of nightmares that come about when women and men work together.
This might blow Lauren's mind, but I have worked with men most of my life. In some situations, I was the only woman employed at a particular place. If there were resentments boiling, they were hidden so well I never even realized.
And I'm not saying that women and men can never work together well. That's not true. I know that's not true, as I work with tons of fantastic, talented men. Although if you've ever paid attention, you'll probably notice every single one of my main film crews have either been gay men or extremely Christian men.
Did Lauren just admit to discriminatory hiring practices?
From my initial Rebel crew to Kaylin and George to John Dutois, Scooter Downey, when the sexual dynamics are gone out of the picture, absolutely, it makes everything so much easier to just focus on the actual projects you're working on, right?
Does she realize she just said she finds most men sexually attractive, and when she does, it distracts her from her work? Interesting.
But even within my own carefully curated world in the workforce that I have created specifically to get rid of a lot of these nightmarish dynamics other people deal with, I still face a massive problem. And that is the crisis of eternal self-doubt.
Welcome to being human.
Impostor syndrome, if you will. And knowing that everyone around me is also doubting me as a woman.
Interesting how Lauren assumes her own employees would be doubting her, the person who hired them, no less, because she's a woman.
And before you freak out and say to yourself, but Lauren, how could you possibly whine and complain about this? Women are propped up in literally every aspect of society right now.
Citation needed. It is interesting, though, how she plays to her audience.
I'm going to tell you that you're exactly right.
I'm not like the other girls. I don't want feminism to open doors for me. I only want what I've earned for my own merit.
A noble idea, to be sure, but first, there is no such thing as a meritocracy, and second, it wasn't feminism that helped Lauren become a right-wing spokesperson.
We don't stand on our own 2 feet. Instead, we are propped up artificially. Just like Marxism, feminism's analytical nature highlighted some very real problems. These left-wing ideologies are good at highlighting crises in society, but always the issue is the proposed absolutely awful solutions, which have been far more of a hindrance, a nightmare to my life, than a help. And I think it's the same for any women in the workforce.
If Lauren thinks she's a spokesperson for the far-right, alt-right, because she's a woman, I would say that's true. But even if feminism never existed, I think Lauren will be right where she is. Except maybe using her husband's last name and probably with a different husband. But women willing to go public for the far-right are rare, so yes, Lauren, it's not your amazing talent that got you here, it's your willingness to publicly spread right-wing beliefs.
No one will ever think I have earned what I built. Or at the very least, I will always have mass doubts from the public or even people I know as friends and acquaintances who probably just won't say it out loud.
Honestly, I would not be surprised if her friends and colleagues do think that way, because the crowd she runs with do think a woman's true role is at home as a wife and mother. That is why she was being roasted for not being married at the ripe old age of 22.
There will always, no matter what, be the perception or the idea that I only got where I am because I am a woman. And honestly, who could blame people for thinking that?
And rather than being upset at people being sexist, she tells them they're right. I'm sadly unsurprised.
Women right now are entering the workforce based on ideas of diversity hiring.
Diversity hiring is not, we need more women in here, Jack. Would love to see her source for this though, because I'm pretty sure having gender quotas in the US would fall under discrimination. When you scroll through a job posting and see that does not discriminate based on sex line, that means you can't refuse someone a job for that reason. And yes, other countries have different laws, but a Google search isn't showing me anything about companies elsewhere in the world declaring their push to fill gender quotas. Of course, if Lauren cited her source, I would know what she's talking about, but of course, it's also possible she has no source to cite because she's making this up.
Where they're practically useless in some positions.
So, following this, companies are hiring women for jobs they can't do solely because they're women. I would like to know where this is happening. I'm very curious to know what company is sacrificing efficiency and profit just for the sake of having a few more women on payroll. I would also like to know if Lauren has considered the possibility that, maybe, she has some internalized misogyny, and so when she sees a woman doing what she considers men's work, she just assumes the woman isn't doing the job properly. There are no sources in this video or in the description box, so all I have are questions.
And proceed to act like they're in charge just because they got it from a quota.
So this video is basically for aggrieved men who think they've been cheated out of a job because women can't possibly do whatever job they're going for. It's also for men who feel aggrieved because they have to work with women. And if they're following Lauren, I would be willing to bet they're assigning thoughts and actions to their female coworkers that said coworkers never even thought of.
If you ask men in trades that work on the oil rigs or docks or wherever, how they feel about women that have been put in the field with them, they don't think a single woman should be there.
I'm not buying that Lauren is familiar with the oil industry, but okay. So to be clear, we're talking about men in male-dominated fields who don't want women there and think any women who do work there are just there for diversity, because companies would definitely put someone ill-equipped in the field on purpose. Companies love to be sued. It's great publicity.
And they all know deep down they wouldn't be if it weren't for progressive hiring policies.
Is the they, the men, or the women? And yes, oil companies are famous for their progressive policies.
They simply cannot naturally compete in these industries. I mean, sort of, because like everything in nature, there are exceptions. In a true meritocracy, you would see a very small handful of women scattered throughout the workforce, even the man-centric workforce.
Per a 2019 article from CNBC, 15% of oil and gas workers are female.
And those women are there right now to an extent, but there will always be a shadow over their career. Because who can truly say that any of them got there purely on their own merits?
Are we talking about Lauren's imposter syndrome or the imposter syndrome she assumes women working in mostly male industries must feel?
It's impossible to tell.
Perhaps err on the side of this person got this job because they have the qualifications to perform it.
Which means that now women in the workforce are almost guaranteed to have a case of imposter syndrome. Those that are there based on quota hires.
Okay. So if a company is looking to be more diverse and they hire, say, a person of color, do they then say, by the way, we hired you over some white person because we have to fulfill our diversity quota? No. These folks always tell on themselves when they hand-wring over quotas. Just admit you think only white men can do the job and go.
Know deep down that they don't belong there. And a lot of them get really angry by this idea, and they try to overcompensate for it by being more aggressive in workplaces, more nasty or masculine.
This video could really just be me saying citation needed. It's interesting how she associates being nasty with being masculine, though.
Because they're trying to compensate for the fact that you probably shouldn't have the job in the first place. Well, those who actually made it of their own volition can never know how much impact feminist ideology had on their careers. How much of it did they actually earn themselves?
If you feel so inclined, please let me know in the comments if you worry that you only got your job because of feminism. I have struggled with imposter syndrome in the past. I think that's something most young people feel at some point, but at no point have I ever thought I was only there because of my sex. And let's be honest, diversity or no, quotas or no, if you're a drain on your employer, they're not going to keep you. They will let you go and find someone else.
It's really hard to admit that I've thought about this when it comes to myself for a long time. One example I can give is every man I've ever met in politics, in this industry, in media, has hired a ghostwriter, an editor, a speechwriter, whatever it is. In fact, almost every man you watch on the news, Tucker Carlson, Piers Morgan, doesn't matter who it is, they all have professional scriptwriters for their shows.
That doesn't surprise me.
But I distinctly remember being completely terrified of this concept. The first time I was introduced to it was when I was offered my first book deal, Barbarians, and I was basically told that someone else would be writing it for me, and that's the norm in this industry. That's what everyone does around here. But I rejected that idea, and I said, no, I want to work on this. I want to write it myself. And I can work with a professional writer so he can help me get to the level it needs to be. But I want it to be all my ideas and all my structure.
I have to admit, I've never been offered a book deal, but I think this is fairly normal. It's natural to want to do your own work and prove yourself.
And even though I did way more than the industry standard, way more than men 30, 40 years older than me were doing in that arena of book writing, I still have to feel bad to this day about getting that help, because that reinforces that constant affirmative action spawned self-doubt.
If everyone else is accepting the help, there's no reason for you to feel guilty about doing the same. Of course, imposter syndrome isn't really logical, but it is interesting how Lauren apparently thinks it's good and right for women to do more work than men just to prove they're actually capable of it. And I bet hearing that these men have ghostwriters didn't change Lauren's opinion of them.
So if you're a woman watching this, we're basically left with two options in the career world. One, you can either cheat the system, do minimal work, fill those quota positions, and, feel shit about yourself forever knowing you didn't actually earn it.
No, I'm pretty sure that would still get you fired. Companies don't keep someone on the payroll out of the goodness of their heart.
Or you can work your ass off, be doubted the entire time, and never know whether those quotas helped you out or not, and still feel like shit.
I reject both options Lauren offers. I enjoy my job, contribute when I'm on the clock, and if someone doubts me because I'm a woman, well, that's their business. And I have to admit, I don't think Lauren is actually that concerned about what strangers think of her.
Although if we're going to get real depressing, the second option isn't even really an option. It's just not true, because no matter how hard you try or how hard you work to make it on your own, this woman-centric hiring system we're in now probably did give you advantages, whether you leaned into them or not.
I don't think Lauren knows how this works. Let's say company A decides they want to diversify, and to them, diversity means more women. So they interview women. They don't just hire the first one that walks in. You still have to meet the basic requirements. You still have to do the job. You still have to bring something besides I'm a woman to the table. If you don't do the job, you will be let go. Unless it's actually a company who can't manage their employees or their books, in which case they'll likely end up filing bankruptcy and then you'll be let go.
For my part, I probably did only get into political work in YouTube because I'm a woman. I wasn't aware of it at the time. I wasn't trying to take advantage of it by any stretch. I just genuinely thought I was entering a system where women and men work together equally, right? But the reason I got accepted on so many panels was because they needed a female conservative representative. They didn't want the stereotypical white male sitting there like every other one. And the reason my critiques of feminism went so viral is because I was a woman saying them and not a man.
She recognizes this, and yet.
And that's terrifying. That is terrifying to think about, because then that self-doubt, it's even more ingrained in your head. It's no longer actually a doubt, it's just a reality. And I detest this more than anything. Feminism has ensured that no matter what I do, no matter what I achieve, I can never be fully proud of it as a woman.
No. Feminism is not responsible for Lauren's acceptance onto far-right and alt-right platforms. However little regard right-wing men have for women, they still need some to spread their message, to make it look more palatable, to convince other women to join. There is a whole book about this, which I'll link below. So no, Lauren, it's not feminism that's making you doubt yourself. It's the fact that you're surrounded by people who hate women and you're a woman.
Of course, I can enjoy my life and what I have, what I've built, but I will always, no matter what, have that little voice in the back of my head saying, do you truly deserve this? And, I fight with myself internally, mentally, saying, there's a lot of women in the world that could have done this career path. They could have taken the same risks as you. They could have put in the same effort to make movies, to make, videos, and they didn't. So clearly you've done something of your own volition that is worthwhile that other people chose not to do. But there's still going to be that question of how I would have actually fared in a true meritocracy.
I'm sure she does struggle with this at times, but I don't feel bad for her. She's made a living spreading hate.
So instead of feminism fostering a genuine respect and understanding between men and women, making them able to work in the same environment and see each other's value add, it's created this constant resentment.
If you feel resentment that your boys club is no longer boys only, that's not because of feminism. That's just sexism.
We know, as women, that men, in many cases, rightly so, doubt our abilities.
And why is that right?
And they're just playing along with what is socially acceptable to say out loud. They're never going to say what they're actually thinking because they'll get fired from their job or excommunicated from society. So they all just sit on the sidelines and they're like, you're doing great, queen. Keep it up, girl boss. Girl boss. Like I I will never understand how women do not see how effing patronizing this is.
I wonder if Lauren considers that her thoughts about what men really think about working with women is heavily influenced by the type of men she works with. And yes, Lauren, women do hate how patronizing the term girl boss is. That's why no woman seriously calls herself that.
And on the flip side, men resent women because they know damn well that they're being overlooked for positions that they would rightfully get in a just system.
Citation needed.
So what do we do about this? I mean, it's probably too late to kick all women out of the workforce. I think that that ship has sailed.
Is that what Lauren wants to do?
And it's not like we aren't some value add in some aspects of the career world. We are, for sure. But the way we have introduced women into this world has doomed us to failure.
The majority of people in the working world right now did not grow up in the era of separate male and female job sections in the newspaper. And if they did, that was decades ago, and they should be over the shock of having female coworkers by now.
And doomed us to these gender wars that we're seeing now.
Citation needed.
I think talking about it openly helps. Honesty and openness about the reality will likely soften the blow and at least help people manage their expectations before entering the workforce.
What expectations?
And it does give me a slight amount of comfort knowing that I am working for myself now. I'm not being propped up by some political party, some organization or media company. If anything, YouTube is curating me out of the view system, right?
So she was being propped up? Interesting. I do wonder how she figures she's being curated out of the algorithm when her view counts have been steady for years. Or is this just another nod to manufactured outrage?
The libs are silencing conservative voices.
So the people watching my videos are watching of their own volition.
When YouTube autoplays or recommends a video, you don't have to watch it. People were always watching of their own volition.
At least I hope. I suppose I don't know if you're all attached to chairs with your eyes pried open, being forced to increase your female content creator viewership. But you know, unless you're checking out my channel for completely masochistic reasons, I must not be saying things that are completely.
You're saying what certain people want to hear. Congratulations.
And I truly appreciate you guys watching that think that I have some value add to this conversation. But either way, no matter how many of you think that, modern feminism has still doomed me to have these feelings forever.
So Lauren isn't a feminist, but it's because of feminism she's having self-doubt? It's too bad feminism couldn't convince her to disavow her previous works. Actually, is she sure that self-doubt isn't just herself beginning to realize that what she's been doing is wrong? Of course, that realization would affect her livelihood, so it's better to rationalize it away as feminism.
To never be fully proud of what I've made.
Well, I mean, you really shouldn't be.
To know that no matter how hard I work, there will always be people who perceive me as getting a leg up. And it's one of those things that will just haunt you for the rest of your life in everything that you do. And it is so frustrating to see feminists all day talking about how hard it is for women to break through in certain industries while they are creating the exact reasons why this happens.
So there are gatekeepers in certain fields at certain organizations, and it's because of feminism that they're there? I'm looking forward to hearing this rationalization.
I have walked into a room and felt genuine sexism.
McKinnis watched stonily as Southern joined the men.
Are you ever going to have kids, give birth? Are you going to be a mother?
He asked her.
Then I'll give them my seat.
The men laughed, and Southern laughed along. Just one of the guys with long, stick-straight blonde hair and an off-the-shoulder floral print dress. McKinnis wasn't quite finished yet.
If you're not making humans, then stand up.
Southern, who was joining him to talk about her documentary Farmlands, which focuses on the alleged persecution of white farmers in South Africa, gasped in faux horror.
And known that sexism against me actually had some validity.
No, it did not.
That's what's effed up, right? They're not being sexist against me because they hate women. They're being sexist because they're all wondering, did feminism make her get through that door?
Assuming a woman couldn't be hired on her own merits is sexism. There's no way to excuse it. Though it is interesting to watch her try to assure her male viewers that not wanting female coworkers doesn't make them sexist. It's natural, because how could they know if those female coworkers were even qualified to work with them when feminism exists? I hope she stretched before doing all these backflips.
Because there's a good chance she didn't do it on her own.
Citation needed.
And now I have to deal with that. Feminism created sexism. So thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
There is no special sort of sexism that feminism created. Sexism is sexism. Whatever rationale someone tries to give, it's still just sexism.
Anyways, I guess I just kind of wanted to get this rant out of my system and see if it resonated with anyone else. I cannot possibly be the only woman in this position. I don't know, maybe the rest of you are just able to ignore it, shove these feelings to the side. If so, I envy you. I cannot.
It did take a few years, but I'm not ignoring the self-doubt. It just isn't there anymore. She is right in that it helps to talk about it. It was through talking about it with my coworkers, including a man, that I realized I've never been given a task and been unable to figure it out, however worried I might have been initially. And I needed to give myself credit for that. And from there, confidence built.
And for the men watching, I wanted to let you know I understand the anger and the resentment you might feel due to this.
Due to what, exactly?
But don't let that feeling win, because many women did not ask to be in this position.
What position?
None of us certainly asked to be in a garbage economy that makes it so that one income is never enough. We're kind of stuck in this crony capitalist progressive
I'm going to need her to explain how capitalism and progressivism go together.
hell together. And instead of fostering this resentment towards the opposite sex, other victims of this system, we need to be honest about the circumstances and take a look at the people actually pitting us against each other. Who are the politicians? Who are the HR departments?
HR departments pit people against each other? I would love to hear how.
Who are the advocacy groups setting up these conditions?
What conditions?
They're the ones at fault, not your fellow man and woman who more than ever need your love. And we need to be united in fighting back against these people.
You're going to fight back against HR? Well, that was a hot mess. It's like she decided to create an issue. I'm sure there are workplaces where people resent each other, but I doubt it's a gender war, especially on a widespread scale. And then she decides to blame everything she doesn't like, feminism, progressivism, advocacy groups, HR, for it. This video is tame in comparison to other things I've seen, but there is something hilarious and some other word watching Lauren Southern, of all people, blame feminism for her imposter syndrome. Blame feminism for the sexism she's experienced, even though sexism is ingrained in right-wing beliefs and the right wing is the horse she's hitched her wagon to. It's just amazing. Truly amazing. Being a conservative is so easy. You find or invent a problem and decide things you don't like, whether because you honestly don't agree with them or you make money to disagree with it, are responsible for it. Brilliant. And also terrible for humanity. And that's it for this video. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I would like to give extra thanks to my patrons, and if you would like to help support the channel, my Patreon is linked below along with everything else. Liking, subscribing, commenting, and sharing are also great ways to show your support if you would like to. Have a great day, night, whenever you happen to be watching this, and fade to cats.